Can you hear me okay, Astrid?
You're good to go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to some of you. Astrid, just give me a signal when you're ready for me to start.
You can go ahead and start, Jim.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the first annual Association of Regional Water Organizations virtual conference. In the short time that we've existed, we've done all of our meetings face-to-face for our annual conference. This year, like many other organizations, because of the pandemic, we are going virtual, and we're glad to have all of you here with us today. We have essentially 2 afternoons of the conference set up. We've got a great slate of speakers and a lot of what we feel is going to be interesting information. I'll introduce myself. Again, my name is Jim Morris. I'm the Executive Director for the Association of Regional Water Organizations. We'll use the acronym ARWO going forward, just so you know that ARWO is the association that we're referring to. I've been with this organization since February 2018. Prior to that, I had spent a long career, 30 years with USDA Rural Development, and a short time, about 4.5 years with CoBank as well. So glad to have this opportunity to speak with you this morning. I know as we get into some of the presenters, and many of you have been on Zoom meetings and other virtual type events since this pandemic started. And I'll have to admit and apologize that my background is not as nice as many of those that I've seen in the past. I'm coming to you today from somewhere out in the middle of nowhere in Colorado. We are about halfway in between Denver and Colorado Springs on the Front Range, kind of up in the foothills. So my view to the back is not as good, but I assure you my view to the front as I look out the window is astonishing. We have several acres of very mature ponderosa pines with some scrub oak intermixed, lots of wildlife. And so as I work here from day to day, I have several items on my desk that I would dare to guess not many of you have. And so first off, I have my trusty binoculars here. So if I see something up in the woods, I can take a quick look. I also have my trusty rangefinder, because as you know, any good hunter is going to have a rangefinder in his pocket to sight distances. I also have a couple of other items. One is my in my front desk here, my handy turkey call, the old box call, and then also my deer grunt call. So I'm all set for any wildlife that may come through, but I assure you I won't be using those today or tomorrow during the conference. But I wanted to share that with you, that there are some advantages of virtual conferences and meetings, and one of them is we get to stay at our home locations for the most part and participate with our fellow water industry folks effectively. So once again, this is ARWO's first virtual conference. We're glad to have everyone with us today. Just as some operational notes, you'll notice on your screen there's a sidebar. In that sidebar, you have the ability to raise your hand and ask questions, and you can also do through the general chat, have discussions that you can have ongoing with people during the presentation. So I encourage you to get engaged, listen to the speakers, and use, we will be, as we prepare for each session. So again, our sessions are scheduled to start on the top of every hour this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon. And the sessions will not run the whole hour. The intent is they'll run between 30 and 45 minutes so that you all have a break before the next session starts. And each session has a question and answer period scheduled towards the end of the presentation. So feel free to type in questions so that some of you may get brought up to the stage through this platform that we're using, Remo, so you can ask your question directly to the speaker, or we will use your questions as part of our discussion with our speakers. So again, please stay engaged and be prepared to ask questions, or if you have questions, feel free to type them in, and we may use those as we go forward. For those of you that signed up in advance, and I have to tell you that even though we're in remote Colorado, the ability to have such great video conferencing abilities is because we have fiber to the home out here. We've had fiber for a couple of years, and I know Bill Teichmiller from EJ Water, who will be participating in some of the presentations the next couple of days, is likely going to talk about how their cooperative water system has begun deploying fiber to the home in their rural Illinois area as well. So thanks to companies, again, it's a small startup company out here that has brought us fiber to the home. I'll go back to my statement about, for those of you that signed up in advance, and even if you signed up just in the last couple of days, you've either received or you will be receiving a welcome packet from ARWO as part of our welcome to have you join us. And it will come in a box like this. So you'll see, once you open the box, there's a couple of items in there. One will be a Yeti cup that has the ARWO on it, as well as one of our main sponsors, CoBank. There's also a book in the packet that will be our main keynote speaker, Seth Siegel, and the title of the book is Troubled Waters. So those items, if you don't have them already, you can look forward to that in the next few days, because every person signed up will be getting one of those. I want to take a minute to thank our sponsors. So obviously, folks that are in organizations or work in not-profit organizations like ours know the importance of sponsorships and allowing us to do what we do. And first, I'd like to mention one of our main sponsors that has been with us since the beginning, and that's CoBank. Hazen and Sawyer engineering firm has also been with us since the beginning. Some of our members actually, in addition to being members, also sponsor our organization. And so we want to give a shout out to El Paso Water down in El Paso, Texas, as well as Delco Water over in Ohio, just outside of Columbus. So again, thanks to the sponsors. Those sponsorship fees as well as membership allows us to put this meeting on, as well as the other activity that we do. So those of you that joined the conference, obviously you know ARWO because you've signed on with us today. Just reiterate, our mission is to be a voice for regional water systems and to promote the needs and the self-sufficiency, sustainability that regional water systems provide to their communities. We want to be that voice on policy and legislative issues in DC. And, we also want to serve as a conduit for peer group discussions, which is, I think, if you've talked with the members that have been part of this organization and have been active, will tell you that that's one of the most important factors, benefit of this organization is the ability of you as regional water systems to interact with other systems across the country. And it, can be, lessons learned. It can be, new technology. And can be things that are working, and helping smaller systems that may be struggling near you. So we, obviously have had a challenging 8 months, I guess, at this point, since March, since the COVID pandemic. I think the impact on systems, we're going to talk about that over the next 2 days, but obviously it varies drastically from system to system. Those of you that have, business or industrial users probably have more negative impact than, for example, the system that I'm on here in rural Colorado, which I also serve on the board of, where we are a relatively small system, but all residential. And, as a result of people working from home, the impact of COVID on my system here is we've had record years in water sales and wastewater treatment because everybody's at home. So just know that we continue to, work with the water groups, the peer groups in DC about negative impacts of COVID on those systems. And hopefully as the new Congress gets seated and what appears to be a new administration coming, there will be some help coming. They're suffering. I think that wraps up my intro. Our first session will start at the top of the hour and will be a discussion with Andrew Sawyers from EPA and Edna Primrose from USDA Rural Development. I'll be leading that discussion. But before then, we have an important message coming from our current president of the ARWO organization, Randy Van Dyke. Mr. Van Dyke.
Thanks, Jim. Can you hear me, Jim, and everyone? I'm assuming that you can hear me at this point. So I will go ahead and introduce myself. I'm just excited to be with you all today. My name is Randy Van Dyke, and I'm the current president for the Association of Regional Water Organizations. And it's a delight serving the last couple of years as president of this organization. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and a look and get into what we want to try to accomplish together as we go forward with the next couple of days. Well, first of all, just to let you know that I have been in the water industry for almost 50 years. Been involved with about 6,000 miles of pipeline construction in a half a dozen different states in the Midwest, and enjoyed an opportunity to do some incredibly wonderful things. I've been with my current employer, Iowa Lakes Regional Water, celebrated my 40th year, so a little over 40 years in this position. Prior to that, I was in the construction business, building regional water systems across the United States. Those of you that know me know that I also represented our water district. Rural Water Board, and in that position, I was the representative for the state of Iowa to the National Rural Water Board for approximately 25 years as well. That, I had the distinct honor to be one of the past presidents of National Rural Water Association during the Clinton administration, and saw the segue into the 21st century. Actually enjoyed the opportunity of serving on the president's Y2K commission. If you all remember, the sky is falling and the Y2K. That was a wonderful opportunity to do some incredibly wonderful things. I've also been asked by EPA to serve on several FACAs and rule development. One that you might know from the water industry is the stage 2 disinfection byproducts. That's just a handful of things that, is very rewarding for me to be able to do that and to be traveling to Washington, D.C. During this, I started my travels to Washington, D.C. and walking around the halls of Congress in the second term of the Reagan administration. That would be in the mid 80s. So from the, from the mid 80s to the current time, I've made a half a dozen to a dozen trips to DC on an annual basis, with the exception of 2020 with the COVID, that's for sure. Bill Teichmiller and I were reflecting upon the history of ARWO, and I just want to kind of just give you a walk down memory lane just for a moment. It might give you an interesting perspective on the genesis of the organization. And as you participate in the conference, and Jim is absolutely right, this needs to be an interactive conference. So we certainly hope that everybody takes advantage of submitting the questions and participating. Visiting with my friends Diane Vandehey and Adam Krantz from their respective organizations. We're all maybe overexposed to video conferencing and Zoom meetings, but we certainly appreciate everybody's attentiveness and participation at ours. We really enjoy that. Our friends from the Association of Metropolitan Water Agency, Diane, and the National Association of Clean Water Agency, Adam, have been very instrumental in the formation of our group, as well as a few others that I'll mention. I want to start maybe perhaps in 2010. At that point in time, this character from Illinois continued to pester a couple of us from Iowa, myself and Mr. Jim LaPlante. At that time, he was the general manager and CEO for Central Iowa Regional Utility Association in Newton, Iowa. And I said, Jim, this guy is really serious about this, forming this new organization. What do you think about that? And we said, well, maybe we should get out of the rocking chair and give him a little support. In 2015, perhaps beginning in 2014, Mr. Teichmiller, myself, and LaPlante made several trips to Washington, D.C. And during that time, we visited with many of the agencies, two that I mentioned.